welcome to the Earache podcast. Latest episode, we've got on John, frontman of the Coda, which is Earache's newest signing. How are you doing, John?
Good, mate. I'm really well. Just sitting down, have a chat with you and crack a beer.
Glad to hear it. How have you been during this whole lockdown thing? It's been a bit of a strange year for everyone, isn't it? But how have you been handling it all?
Oh, it's been a mixed bag, man. It's like you have your good days, your bad days. The first round was pretty difficult. I'm a pretty extroverted person, and I live on my own. So, being on your own for like 3 or 4 months or whatever was a bit intense.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Definitely had my moments. Definitely indulged a little bit more in certain beverages more than I usually would. But
I think that's pretty common, isn't it? I think a lot of people's vices during the lockdown have probably been on the increase just because there's more hours in the day, isn't there? And there's more boredom to kill. And
yeah,
I think it's natural.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually managed to write quite a few decent tunes though, which I was quite happy about. So that was good.
So how has it been living on your own? Because I imagine then, there's been stretches of time where have you literally not seen any other human in real life then? It's been days, weeks where you've just...
so... you can there's a support bubble thing. So if you do live alone, you can go visit one other household. So I've been fortunate in that regard. In the previous lockdown, I had one household that I could visit, or actually one friend I'd visit. But I'm very fortunate in this lockdown that my girlfriend, I'm kind of part of the support bubble with her house.
Yeah.
Living alone, so which is actually really, really helpful. It's actually quite an important rule, I think, that they've put in.
Definitely,
because otherwise, if you're following them, it literally means you don't spend time with people for months on end. And the first lockdown was really difficult for that.
Yeah. Well, that would send anyone round the bend, wouldn't it? Really, you need to interact with other humans, and if that's taken away from you, I don't know. It's not natural.
Yeah, it got a bit gnarly for a while. I think my mental health definitely suffered.
Yeah,
because you just start climbing up the walls, and and to kind of counteract that, you crack open a beer at bloody 4 PM, and then then it starts being 3 PM.
Yeah, nice.
And,
slippery slope, isn't it? It gets earlier and earlier each day.
Yeah, exactly. So, but hey, look, fortunately, I'm a musician, so I get to write music, and so I managed. There's a couple of pockets there through the first lockdown where I was really creative.
Yeah,
I wrote lots of songs, but then the thing is, if you're spending all this time on your own, looking at the same 4 walls every day, there's not very inspiring.
Yeah, true.
So it gets a bit fucking tiring and boring. But so it's been swings and roundabouts.
Because you live in London, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And originally from Australia.
Yep.
So when did you come over to the UK, and what made you come over?
So I came over in my early 20s, a long time ago now, and I, to be honest with you, I wanted to come over to the UK and form a badass rock and roll band and get a record deal.
Nice.
That's
tick that box.
That's why I kind of did it, if I'm perfectly honest.
Yeah, well, that's the cool thing. So that was the actual reason you moved over here. What, because of the amount of rock bands that come out of the UK, or just because you felt that was the best chance?
Oh, I don't know, man. I think I was just running away from where I grew up, and I just, I was young, and I just was like, fuck this, I'm out of here. I was actually trained to be an actor.
Okay, wow.
In Australia, I was training as a drama school, and it was a really intense drama school, and they were like very much like, you need to work out whether you're an actor or a musician. I was like, well, why do I have to do that? Why can't I just be both? And they said, well, like, you do. And I was like, well, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm going to, do something else. So I kind of dropped out of drama school and got on a plane to London with an acoustic guitar and you know, some clothes and yeah, I just kind of threw myself into London, and it's been a wild, long journey, but that's in all honesty what I wanted to do. I wanted to play music, and you know, I made life pretty difficult for myself.
Yeah,
you know, I could have just stayed in Australia and done this.
Well, I mean, you've obviously, you know, how things have worked out. You said you came over here to start a badass band and get a record deal, and you know, you've started a badass band and you've got a record deal with Earache. So it looks like, you know, it's the right call, at least.
Yeah, I'm kind of a bit like, yeah, fuck yeah, I did do that. If I'm honest.
No, it's pretty cool. So was there a moment where you thought like, you know, I can't be bothered with this acting thing anymore? Was there a certain thing that made you forget it and want to do the musician thing instead, or was it just a natural thing that happened?
Well, the thing is, I've been a musician since I was 10 years old. So music wasn't something that was just something I thought about. I literally, since I was 10, I was like, I want to be a musician.
Yeah.
I started playing guitar at 10. Nothing else mattered to me apart from riding dirt bikes. But the acting thing was just a blip. It was kind of almost like a bit of a break from being a musician. You know, I kind of was fucking about. I was in between bands. I was a bit jaded with the music scene in Brisbane. I was tired. Well, not tired like you know, like tired, but like I was sick of the scene. And
yeah,
I just auditioned for a drama school and I didn't even give a shit about it. I was like, oh yeah, whatever, I'll just fucking go and do it. And I got in and I was like, oh shit, fuck, okay. Little did I know that going to acting school means you've got to do 40 contact hours a week and you've got to put up with all sorts of shit. And it's an institution like any other institution. And I don't really cope well in institutions. So
I bet there's a lot of, I imagine there's a lot of egos in the acting world, isn't there? A lot of prima donna types.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll never, look, I was never really part of the acting world as in the business, because I pissed off to London to do music before I even, you know, finished drama school. So, but the drama school was, it was fun. Yeah, but there's lots of egos, you know, just like the music industry. You know, I think any industry that's creative and fun, you're going to find a mixture of things. You're going to find really interesting, cool people.
Yeah.
Or you're going to find fucking assholes, you know?
Of course, yeah. Well, like you said, it's a creative thing, and musicians have got a creative brain, and, you know, acting is another part of the creative arts, isn't it? So I guess there's a bit of an overlap there where, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how was your childhood generally in Australia?
Oh, it was a mixed bag, you know. You know, growing up was an interesting experience. I got 3 other siblings. I'm the youngest of 3 other siblings.
Yeah.
My old man was a small business guy. He owned his own businesses and stuff. You know, when I was little, he owned a motorcycle shop. So I spent my very, very small years, you know, hanging out with him when he in his motorcycle shop, and then you know, he was always kind of a entrepreneurial kind of guy, and so you know, we were always working for him. So I kind of grew up in a very kind of a working environment. You know, we're always kind of grafting as a family, you know.
Yeah.
School holidays weren't really sitting around watching video games. You were down at a warehouse or a building site,
stuck in
learning how to drive a forklift, kind of thing.
Yeah, fair enough.
But it was cool though. Like, you know, I had an interesting childhood. You know, I discovered music very, very young, and that was great for me, because I didn't really have many friends when I was little, and then I kind of discovered music, and then that was the thing that made me just focus. And then yeah, music just became my identity very, very, very quickly, you know.
Do you remember that
pretty much.
Do you remember that one moment where it sort of the penny dropped for you? Like, was there a particular band, a particular song where you heard it and you were like, fuck yeah, this is what I want to do?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Like, I can remember to this day, I was on the school bus. Some kid gives me some tape, back in the days when they had tapes, showing my age. He gave me a blank tape and he said, you got to listen to this. And I said, oh, yeah. And I went home, and I just still remember to this day, I went home, my mum was downstairs hanging up the washing, and I put the tape in the cassette deck, and I heard the a-down-ga-down, a-down-ga-down, a-down-ga-down-ga-down-ga-down-ga-down. Ooh! You know, and, exactly.
Yeah.
And I just remember, I swear to God, man, I just remember going, what the fuck is this? Yeah. Like, I like, what the fuck is this? This is, I gotta have some more of this, right?
Yeah.
And I swear to God, man, I swear to God, this is not a lie. In that moment, I just was like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. I had a similar thing. I think my first sort of few years when I was first getting into music, it was like I wasn't aware of rock and metal and heavy music. And it was basically whatever CDs my mum would play in the car. And, you know, it'd be things like the heaviest it would go would be like REM or something like that. And do you remember that boy band Blue? She was really into them. And of course, she's playing them all the time. So you sort of, you know, as a kid, you're not trying to be cool or anything. You're like, yeah, this is all right. And then I remember distinctly one day there was an advert on the TV, and it was for this compilation album called Permission to Rock. And Permission to Rock. And the first track on it was Ace of Spades, Motorhead. And yeah, within about 30 seconds of putting the headphones in on that, it's like, what the fuck is this? Oh my God. And since then you never look back. So I think a lot of people have that one moment where it's like, you know, they hear something and that's it. It's set them up for life. This is the path they're going down. And yours was...
There's something unbelievable about when music gets you when you're really young, and it is like... It's like an injection. It's like you're being injected with something, like a drug.
Well, yeah, that's it. It's like a drug, isn't it? It's...
And you never look back, you know, like the same thing, like my old man loved his Doors, and he loved a bit of Led Zeppelin, he loved his Beatles and all that sort of stuff, and you know, yeah. But I'd never heard a lot of it, and I dug it. Like I always thought, this is pretty cool, but it wasn't my music, you know. It was good music, and I loved it. And obviously, I've grown to, you know, love Led Zeppelin and the Doors and et cetera, et cetera. But when I heard Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction for the first time, that was my music.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the fucking greatest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen what they looked like and anything like that. I just heard this, you know, because, dude, I heard it on a blank cassette tape. I hadn't seen, like, the cool artwork and all that sort of shit. And I can see you got it in your background.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it?
But like, I hadn't seen any of that. All I'd heard was this insane, like, just groundbreaking, ridiculous rock and roll that was like from another planet. And
there's something about the start of that song as well, isn't it? Where he's like, "Oh my God!"
Oh yeah,
and you're like, it's like what's going on in your brain at the time, the first time you hear it. It's and it still stands up to this day, doesn't it, as one of the greatest songs.
I mean, dude, man, they were 23 years old when they made that record.
Yeah,
it's fucking mind blowing. That record is just mind blowing.
Yeah. I mean, what you were talking about before about the way music can just sort of do stuff to you. I think it's one of the few things on this planet, in this universe, that is just like, I mean, I think we take it for granted. If like an alien came here and they didn't have music on their planet and you were trying to describe it to them and you're like, right, so it's these invisible vibrations that go through the air. And when they go into your brain, they make you feel certain emotions and they can get your blood pumping. It can make you angry. It can make you sad. You know, if you've never heard of music before, you'd be like, wow, what are they talking about? But we just kind of, I don't know, I feel like people still take it for granted, the fact that music is this thing that we have. And it is, you know.
That's a really, really interesting point. I was I totally get what you're saying. I was a couple of years ago, I don't know when it was, maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, I was at this local of mine, and we had a lock-in.
Yeah.
Right. And we had a lock-in with a couple of Irish chicks. And, you know, I love drinking with Irish women because they're hilarious and they love music.
Yeah.
In my experience, the Irish women that I've drunk with. And I remember we're sitting at this table, we're at a lock-in, and we've been drinking for 7 hours. And this girl said, you know, they were like, "Oh, you're a musician?" I was like, "Yeah, I am." They said, "Oh, play some song." I said, "Oh, no, I don't want to be a wanker and, you know, well, sing us a song or something." And this chick said to me, she said, "John, in Ireland, in our culture, music is not something you're coy about and you are too cool about. Music is something you share with people. So if you can make music, you should share it." And I'd never heard anyone talk like that before, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think in England and Australia, sometimes there's a bit of a like, "Oh, all right, mate, what you doing?" You know, like, don't get too big for yourself, kind of thing.
People love to sort of put other people down, don't they? I think there's a bit of jealousy in that as well. You know, if someone, you know, if you're at a music festival in a campsite and someone gets out a guitar, everyone's like, "Oh, for God's sake, you know, come on, what's this prick doing?" But in reality,
absolutely,
you know, why are they like that? It's like you said, it's sharing the music or something. But I don't know. I read an amazing quote the other day on the internet. I can't remember who said it originally, but it was something along the lines of, "Art is something we use to decorate space, and music is something we use to decorate time." And I was just like, "Oh, wow, that's good, isn't it?" Yeah, I'd never heard it summed up like that before. But
that's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, that is great, because I've always felt like music is a soundtrack to your life.
Yeah. And if you think back, I don't know, me personally, if I think back to, like, you know, my best memories, those highlights of my life, a lot of them are decorated with music, you know, standing in front of a band live. And it's the sort of thing that it imprints in your brain forever, you know, certain moments, certain songs by certain bands at certain festivals. And it's like, yeah, it's like a drug that, you know, but an invisible vibrational drug that travels through the air and affects you. It's like magic to me. It's the closest you can get to magic.
I couldn't agree more, man. You know, like I'll hit periods where I'm thinking, why am I really anxious and depressed and pissed off at the world? Then I'll be like, oh, I know why. I haven't picked up a guitar and sung a song in 3 days.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I can't really function without making music.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of live and breathe it, and it's been like that since I was 10 years old. I've never known anything any different, and every single decision that I've made in my life has been dictated by being a musician.
Yeah, no, it's an absolutely necessary part of life and being a human. I think without it, the world would be a lot sadder place.
Oh yeah, I mean, God, there's so many memories that come from it. You know, just I could talk about it for hours. About, you know, I can look back to different pockets of my life and go, fuck, I was listening to, you know, New York Cares by Interpol when I was driving back from Woodford Folk Festival on ecstasy with my Uncle Willie, who's dead now, but
yeah,
you know, just this or that, or, you know, like just my brain explodes.
Yeah.
with memories connected to music.
Yeah, no,
which is great about the film High Fidelity, because he basically he you know, he creates his own little record database of his music in chapters of music. You know, it's like an autobiography by music, which is fucking cool.
Yeah. And I guess that's, you know, in some ways we should count ourselves lucky that we've, you know, with the lockdown and everything that's going on, you know, people can't take the music away from you. You can still listen to it. You got the internet, you got your vinyls, you know, you can still listen to it. But at the same time, they have taken away live music. And I think that's such an important thing for the soul. If you're a music fan and that's part of your routine and going to gigs, and then suddenly it's taken away, I mean, I'm not particularly a massive fan of this song, but you know, American Pie. But there's a lyric in it where it's like the day the music died. And I remember listening to that quite a lot at the start of lockdown, and it would like tear me up because I'd be like, wow, yeah, fuck, there's no gigs to go to. And that was the sort of thing that I'd use as a way to, you know, it's escapism, isn't it? Going to a gig, something like that, you know, being in amongst a crowd of strangers, seeing a band lose it on stage, you know, there's nothing else going on in your brain at that time except, you know, you're there, you're present in the moment. And
it's absolutely, and it's very sad, you know, and I think to step back and look at it objectively and go, fuck, this has never happened.
Yeah.
You know, you know, this is the longest time I've gone without playing a live performance of music in 30 years.
Wow. Yeah, well, I mean, just for me, I'm not a musician. I don't have any talent. I'm just a big appreciator. But I imagine it's even more exaggerated for someone like you who's used to getting up on stage and standing in front of all these people and sharing the music with them. It's even another level of, you know, there's something missing, right?
Yeah, it's just a head fuck, especially like, you know, you sign a record deal with this album that you've made, but you don't know when you're going to be able to play it live. It's the biggest head fuck. It's a strange juxtaposition of emotions to go through, because it's, you know, we're very excited about everything, but I'm also like, I want to play this motherfucker live, you know?
Of course, that's what you're in it for, isn't it? That's why musicians do start bands. They don't do it necessarily to record an album and put it on Spotify. They do it to play it in front of loads of people. That's obviously the main drive behind it, right?
Absolutely. And just, you know, when we were shooting the Limbo Man video, there was a moment where there was a few problems with the playback, and we were having some struggles with the playback and we're in the top tier studio.
Yeah.
And that's the scene where there's the two cars and we're in front of the two cars in the big hangar. And I was like, okay, fuck, we're running out of time, but we're having trouble hearing the playback, which is putting us out of time or whatever. I said to Scott and the guys, I said, Scott, you keep playing, I'm going to turn my amp on and I'll play, Scott will play, and the rest of the guys will kind of mime as you do in music videos. But I was actually playing Limbo Man live.
Yeah.
And Scott was playing the drums live, obviously. And that was the first time I played like with the band. Half, you know, the other guys were actually playing, like their amps weren't on, but that's the first time him and I fucking made music together, like in like 6 to 9 months. And like,
it feel good.
The guy lives fucking 2 minutes walk from me. He lives around the corner, but like, just plugging the guitar in, turning the fucker up on the amp, and it booming through the Top Gear studio. I was like, man, I fucking miss this.
Yeah.
The sound of a drum kit and a distorted guitar just smashing out. It really fucked with me how much I've been in denial about how much it upsets me that I can't do that at the moment.
Yeah, no, I hear you totally. And obviously for people watching, the Limbo Man video is out now. First single off the new album, Mojo Skyline. So tell us more about that video. So you hired some classic cars for the day and ragged them around a racetrack in, where was it? Just south of London. Is that right? Yeah,
it's at the Top Gear Studios. Oh, fuck, man. I can't even remember where it is now.
Dunsfold Park, is that the one? Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So we got there. It was like, it was such a rainy day. We got there super early, 7 a.m. or whatever, for the first call. And the first scene was like shot on the runway, and they were shooting. I was the first person they were shooting. So we're doing solo shots of me, you know, guitar amp and whatever, just rocking.
Yeah.
And it's just pissing down. It's just, you know, the wind was fucking crazy and it's wet and rainy. Like, it got to a point where it's a bit like, shit, my amp and my guitar is going to get ruined by water if we don't stop this. And then the rain stopped for a little bit. Then we shoot, and then it never pelted down, but it was just so cold and so fucking miserable trying to like rock out.
Yeah.
And then then all of us did that scene together. But I just remember having this feeling when it was just me on the runway, because the crew had to go up the street, off to the offset to go somewhere else to pick up some equipment. There's 2 vans for the crew to go off. And they said, oh, will you be all right here on your own? I was like, yeah, fine. And then I suddenly standing there in the middle of a fucking, like, a racetrack on my own. It's kind of raining. I've got a guitar and an amp, but I'm literally the only person there. And I was like, what are you doing with your life, mate?
Nailing it, yeah.
I was like, what are you doing? This is the most bizarre fucking experience, to be sitting here, standing there in the middle of a field on your own with a guitar and an amp.
In the pissing
and
down.
No one's around you. And it's nearly pissing down. I'm just like, God, where has my life taken me? I'm some kid from Brisbane, and now I'm standing in the middle of an airfield with a guitar in my hand in England.
Yeah.
It was a fun shoot, though.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell from the video that, you know, you're having an absolute ball, especially the bits, like you say, when you're in the warehouse bit and you're all playing together. And I guess, like you say, part of that is because it was, you know, the first time you played live as a band for, you know, a while, really. And it's having that bond back together and being able to play as one again. It must have been a fun experience, right?
Yeah, it was great when we got inside. I mean, it was cool driving the Mustangs.
Yeah,
like
I bet.
That was awesome. I didn't actually realise until we turned up on set that I'd be driving the Mustang.
Right.
So I spoke to Jamie, the director, and I was like, oh yeah. And I thought they were going to be towing us, like in a flatbed or something, like the car would be towed and I'd pretend to be driving.
Right, yeah.
So I was a bit like, why do they want my driver's license? And then on the day, I was like, oh, fuck. We're driving Mustangs.
Pretty cool, though.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we spent like a couple of hours caning around. It was great because you'd have to do some shots where, like, they only needed like a tiny shot, but you had to like cane it down the runway.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, let's do this. And so Scott was in the car next to me in some of the shots. And I'd be like, right, man, let's fucking do this. And he'd be like, all right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you got to put the pedal to the metal on these bad boys. And you got to remember, these are old cars, man.
Are they quick, though?
They're like
quick acceleration.
Well, they're not, you know, they're pretty quick off the mark, but it's just not like driving a modern car.
Because they're classic.
But they,
things, right?
Yeah, but they sound amazing. The sound of like being in the car and
like shake, you can proper feel the road and everything.
It's like being Mad Max or something. I loved it. It's such a great time.
Yeah, there's something about modern cars where it's all just a bit too smooth, isn't it? I like driving old cars where you can actually feel the car shaking beneath you, and you put your foot down, and you know you're back in your seat. It's
and also you don't have some prick to tell you put your seatbelt on or go,
yeah,
you must take a left turn right now. You know, you just like.
Yeah. So how much could you like get away with? Because obviously they're expensive cars, and we only hired them for the day. But were you doing like donuts and wheel spins and stuff like that? Or?
Well, no. The director was like, "Look, you can't," because I gave it some welly, you know, and I was like, "Let's fucking give this a shot." And then the director was like, "Hey, they track the markings on the tires when you return the car to see if you've been caning it off." I was like, "Oh, okay." But we gave it a good run. There was one point where they wanted me to do like a lot of circular stuff, turning around, and you know they were filming the car going round and round, and I think I nearly got myself a little donut happening, but no, we had to be careful.
Yeah. So are you into cars and stuff?
Oh, look, I wouldn't say I'm an aficionado. I like cars, but no, I'm not like a, you know, I don't sit there studying the fuckers.
Yeah, no, me too, to be honest. I'm not massively into them, but I can appreciate a nice looking car, even if I know nothing about them. And those two were little beauties, weren't they?
Weren't they just? They were so lovely.
Yeah. No, the reason I ask about the car thing as well is to take it onto the album, the new album, Mojo Skyline. It's got some, I mean, I'm loving the artwork for it. It's very, how would I describe it? It's got quite a psychedelic Fear and Loathing vibe to it going on, with obviously a car ragging it through the desert. So talk us through that one and how you arrived at that as some artwork.
So I think it started with we had a call because we realised, as in me and the boys had a call, because we realised we needed to come up with an album title. Digby, you know, he was like, guys, come up with an album title. And we're like, sure, we're going to do this quickly. And so we had a call, and we had a few ideas floating around, and we came up with Mojo Skyline. We all kind of, we had some conversations about that, and that kind of worked out, and we came up with that title. And so we went in with Nick, the designer for the cover, who, you know, obviously does all the Beavertown stuff. He's one of the co-founders of Beavertown. We went into Nick and we were like, look, here's the name of the record. And we kind of started talking about what that means. And like, for me, you know, Mojo Skyline, it sounds cool, but for me, it's always about like that feeling of when you're on the road, you spend a lot of time looking out windows, looking at the sky.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in the front of a splitter van. And you just you do a lot of contemplation. And I think what we wanted to kind of put across in the cover was like the chaos and the randomness and the strangeness of being in a rock and roll band, and portray something that was kind of unique and kind of freaky. And so Nick started putting together all this stuff, and he's brilliant. He works so quickly, and you know, obviously has his feel.
Yeah.
And so he gave us a draft, and we're like, fuck yeah, you know, it's like, it's got like a Mustang, like a cool car on the front cover. And we were like, you know, what are we looking at here? And the whole concept of this is like, there's a couple of dudes sitting in a car looking at a drive-in. And then there's this whole skyline going on behind it. And then we just started talking about cool shit we could add in, you know, like, what would be cool to add in? It's like, oh, fuck it, let's put a dead body in the trunk.
And an octopus.
You know. Say what?
And an octopus, right? Is that an octopus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Nick came up with that, and you know, he came up with most of it, like pretty much all of it. And then we just started augmenting a bit. And you know, what was cool was we just started adding little bits and pieces that were like relevant to the band, like, you know, like the guitar hanging out, the guitar string hanging out, like the head of the guitar hanging out the car and stuff like that. It was so much fun to go through it, because when you're working with like a really great graphic artist who's really competent, they can just take your ideas and just run with it so quickly. Yeah,
and the thing I love about it as well, it's not your typical rock band album cover. You know, it's very striking, colourful. It's I don't know, it's, the word I would use is kind of trippy to describe it. It looks like it's made by someone who's partaken in psychedelic drugs before.
Yes, indeed. And you know, when I was a younger man than I am today, I definitely have had my experience with the psychedelics.
Yeah.
And so I definitely appreciated that, and I liked the whole Hunter S. Thompson vibe.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I got.
The Fear and Loathing vibe. I loved it.
Yeah.
And also, there's a good departure from us, because you know, the first album, you know, it was kind of a cool rock cover, and you know, which is on my wall at the moment, if you can see that.
Yeah, there it is.
So you know, that was kind of more of a, not stock standard, but that was kind of a different kind of cover. So we were like, let's fucking do something different, right?
Juice it up a bit.
Yeah, exactly. So I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah. So you mentioned before about, you know, in your younger days, you have done psychedelic drugs. What sort of stuff did you dabble with?
Wow, you know.
I only ask because I'm interested in it. I've done a few myself as well, and I find it I find it a really fascinating part of society that it's kind of like unspoken in some ways, where it's like there's this thing out there that's fucking mind blowing, but it's almost.
Well, I think you know, LSD is a pretty potent drug, you know, and
yeah,
for anyone who's done it,
it's profound, isn't it? It can have profound effects on your mind and your way of thinking.
Well, I discovered that I was meant to be a singer in a rock and roll band on LSD.
Well, there you go. That's what I mean about profound. It can show you these certain things where it's like it can change your life forever, and often in a good way, I find.
Oh, absolutely. I remember it clearly, you know. I went to a Radiohead concert.
Yeah.
And they were on their OK Computer tour. And I watched the whole show and I was just like, holy fuck. Ooh.
Yeah.
There's an eclipse happening and this is what I should be doing. And I was not really a singer up until this point. I was about 17, maybe 19, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember walking out of the show and just being like, and I went and saw the show on my own. I remember walking out the show and going, this is probably what I should be doing now.
Wow. Was there really an eclipse happening during that Radiohead gig? Was that was reality, or was that part of the trip?
Wow. You never know.
Because I was going to say, that'd be quite an amazing gig. I'm going to go see Radiohead during a solar eclipse.
It felt like that to me, man. That's all we need to know.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it doesn't matter either way if it was real to you. But yeah, no, it can have those kind of effects, like things like that. And I think, I don't know, I feel sorry for people. I wouldn't encourage anyone to do it who doesn't want to do it. But also I feel sorry for people who go all the way through life and don't have experiences like that just because, it's illegal, isn't it? I mean, it's illegal in this country. I mean, in the US election, I know they vote on all sorts of stuff, and they've legalized psychedelics in quite a few states. I think in Oregon was one of them, and I think that's a step in the right direction because it can have amazing consequences on certain things like depression, addiction. I think there's studies out there where it shows like something like a 90% success rate on curing addiction, like overnight as well.
I think the thing about psychedelics is they need to be respected.
Definitely, yeah.
It's you don't just jump on that roller coaster, not even a roller coaster. You don't just jump on that ride for an hour.
No.
You're on that for 12, 15, 20 hours.
Well, with LSD especially, it can last that long, can't it? So once you're in,
it's a different thing. It's a different kind of thing. So you have to respect the potency of that experience and give yourself into it. Because if you don't, then that's when you really find yourself in trouble.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I think the bad trips can happen when people, like you said, you don't give yourself over to it. You feel it coming on and you resist and you're like, oh crap, what's going on? And that's when things can go south. But if you just sort of surrender to it, and I think setting as well is really important. You've got to be in the right.
Absolutely, man. You got to be around positive people. You got to be in a positive place, not in the city, as far as I'm concerned. You need to be around nature. I mean, I haven't indulged in a very long time. I spent a lot of time when I was younger, in my early 20s. Actually, in my teens. I took LSD when I was 15.
Wow, that's young, isn't it?
And I took it for several years when I was young, and I stopped taking my early 20s because I realized I'd looked through the doors of perception. I'd had a peek around, and I realized that actually I'd seen what I needed to see, and I didn't need to look any further. But one thing I did realize in that experience is that it's you need to be in a place of tranquility and
absolutely
positivity to get the best out of it.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. And I mean, I've only ever done it a handful of times in my life, but I think, like you said, you don't need to do it necessarily more than that. You go in there, you get what you need, and you leave. And that's kind of what it was like. I mean, I had one in the summer. With the lack of festivals going on, I was desperate for some kind of, something to do with my mates. And so we threw a tiny little festival in, it was at my auntie's house, she wasn't there, but she's selling the place, and she's got like this nice sort of woods down the back of it. So we just had a fire and we just sat around and we had some mushrooms, and it was, it was an amazing experience, but I went into it with a certain intent behind it. And I've got a bit of, I had a problem with smoking in the past, like an addiction. My dad's a big smoker. I took after him, and I went into this trip with the intention of like, right, I'm going to use this to stop smoking. And, you know, I went in there, and, you know, it's a way to, you can sort of reconfigure your brain, rewire it in a way. And, you know, since then I haven't smoked, and it's amazing the effect that things like that can have on you. And,
is that right?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I think intent is a big part of it. Like you say, it's not something to sort of, you know, not take seriously. It's a serious thing. And if you handle it correctly, it can be really beneficial. So,
well, it is something that can really help you. But at the same time, you know, it's something you can really fuck a lot of people up if they don't know what they're doing, and that's the problem with it.
Yeah.
You know, it's so powerful. And I actually don't. It's funny. I don't find myself recommending it to anyone, because some people, you know, some people can take it and really, it can really fuck them up, you know. And I do. That does concern me, you know. But it's kind of like enter the end of the mission at your own peril, you know, or at your own responsibility.
Yeah, it's
like I know a couple of people who do ayahuasca.
Yeah,
and they're always saying to me, "You would be perfect for ayahuasca," and I'm like, I probably would, you know. I probably am the perfect candidate for ayahuasca, but I have looked through those doors and I've seen what I need to see, brother, and I'm good with that. You know, I'm happy down here on Earth.
I think ayahuasca is another level, isn't it? I mean, I've never done it myself, but I'm fascinated by it. I've read a lot about it, and I think it is sort of on my, I don't want to say bucket list, because that makes it sound like, you know, it's sort of like, I don't know, you're going to see, you know, the pyramids or something like that, and it's not on the same level, but it's about experience, isn't it? And I think one thing that psychedelics can do is it's a very humbling thing, and it's sort of, it tells you that actually you think you know what's going on, you haven't got a fucking clue, mate, because like, look at this side of it, there's a whole nother dimension here. And
oh yeah, absolutely, it's an endless river.
Yeah, no, it can be really profound. I mean, I was lucky enough to go to Thailand last year with my girlfriend, and obviously they've got quite a big culture over there of magic mushrooms, and we had a magic mushroom tea and sat on the beach and watched the sunset. And I wouldn't say I'm a religious person at all. You know, I'm not against it. I'm not opposed to religion, but I'm not religious. But, you know, I had a full-on religious experience that time. It felt like I was, you know, I don't want to say God, but I was interacting with this higher power. And you come out of it just feeling like humbled. And it's hard to put into words, but there's a lot of, it's just this great feeling of love behind it often. And it's,
well, that's the thing. It's a connected energy.
Yeah.
That and it's different for everyone. So, you know, yeah.
But to take it back to the Dust Coders music, I mean, it's hard rock, like you said. It's a modern rock classic, but I think there's definitely elements of it that are, like, I would say there's this trippiness to it, this psychedelicness to it. You've got these kind of soundscapes going on in the background, and it's yeah, and along with the artwork, it's something that I think sets you apart from a lot of other rock bands these days. You know, you get a lot of just kind of meat and potato rock bands where it's like, you know, riff, 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 solo, riff, riff, riff. But there's something about yours where it's got this other level to it.
Well, yeah, I'd like to think so. You know, like because we all listen to so much different music, man. Like, you know, I spend half my time listening to Radiohead and Wilco and, you know, Dylan and Leonard Cohen and The War on Drugs, and, you know, like, I don't sit there and listen to AC/DC every day.
Yeah.
You know, like, my record collection is just all over the place. So that's what I'm really, you know, I'm really proud about Mojo Skyline, because it it's got some banging rock and roll tunes, but it's also got some real kind of very melodic, atmospheric songs, and songs that kind of do everything, like I've Been Waiting. That's kind of like a sludgy White Stripes track crossed with Radiohead and fuck knows what else. Dreamer is kind of like goes into like a bit of Lynyrd Skynyrd crossed with Foo Fighters, crossed with whatever, We're always expanding our horizons songwriting wise, because we don't want to do meat and potatoes rock, because 95% of the time meat and potatoes rock's pretty shit.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I mean, I do love a lot of it. Like you said, AC/DC. They're one of my favourite bands ever. And they're simple,
man,
aren't
like, dude, like
have you heard the new album?
AC/DC. Yeah, I have. It's great.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It's amazing they're just still going, really, isn't it? I find it fascinating that they're still going. There's a band and that Brian's back and everything. It's like, fair play to them. They don't need to be churning out albums. They could be, sat in their mansions at home sipping cocktails or whatever. But
absolutely, but I think it's a good album. Like, what's the first song that's on the album? Realize.
Yeah, I think so.
That start with Brian, and it's just like, fuck, he's back. Yeah. He's back.
Yeah.
He's here.
One of my favourite gigs of all time was seeing AC/DC. I went to Madrid to see them. I think it was summer 2015, something like that. And it was just before Brian left with his, his ear problem. And I don't know if you've seen many gigs in Spain or in like Latin America. I've never seen any there, but the crowd, they just go fucking nuts for it. They make like English crowds look really wooden and boring. Yeah, everyone is just losing their shit all over the shop. And it was amazing. It was at the Vicente Calderon, which is the Atletico Madrid stadium, and we were right.
Yeah, right.
Middle, and it was fucking great. But as an Aussie, you must, they're one of Australia's finest, aren't they? Exports, really.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I've seen DC several times. I saw them when I was about 10 years old on their Razor's Edge tour, and then I saw them when they had Jono. Just before he had to, piss off for a bit with his hearing issues. And that was just fucking unbelievable. That was in London a couple of years back. And then I saw them with Axl Rose.
Yeah.
And that was fucking amazing. And what I love about seeing AC/DC is AC/DC fans are amazing, because everyone knows what they're there for.
Yeah.
And no one's pretentious. No one's fucking trying to out-cool each other or whatever. You'd be fucking banging out, like, even not even being in the mosh pit. You might be like, 100 meters back in the standing area, and you'd have your hands around some dude you've never met before,
air guitar,
and you're like, "'Cause I'm TNT," and you'd be fucking singing. You'd be like, just screaming with some dude you've never met, and everyone's in the same boat, and you look around and you're like, "Oi, oi," and like everyone around you is doing the same thing, and nobody gives a shit about looking cool or anything. It's the best atmosphere. Yeah,
they're the least like posy band going, aren't they? I mean, if you look at Angus, I mean, Angus doesn't exactly look, he's not exactly eye candy, is he? I wouldn't put it that way, but there's something about him that's so fucking awesome. He's like this sponge that's made out of snot that's being squeezed by the power of his own guitar. It's like, incredible player, and amazing that he's still going. I don't know how old he is now, but he must be pushing, 80, 70? I don't know.
No, I reckon they're late 60s.
Are they really? Okay, yeah.
Johnson, I think Jono's probably 70s.
Yeah.
So give me 10 seconds. I'm just going to grab another beer from the fridge.
No worries.
Realize. That's a tune, man.
Yeah. No, I was really pleased with the new album. Because you're never quite sure.
Good. It's good. I was a bit unsure at first, but it's got some killer tracks. What's interesting is we were signing some of the vinyl. Me and the boys were having to sign some of the vinyl for the pre-orders last night, and we were listening to the new DC record.
Yeah.
And, then after that record finished, Spotify goes and plays you like the other DC album. And, we're all like, great, we're going to listen to loads of AC/DC tonight, which is great. But as we all know, AC/DC's albums sometimes all blur into each other.
Yeah.
And, AC/DC are probably one of the greatest rock and roll bands in the world. So I don't say that with any disrespect. But what was funny was we were listening to like a classic, I think Classic Rock Magazine playlist of like the last kind of, year or something, or songs that they'd picked as like their contenders for the songs of the week. And we're like, yeah, there's some great stuff on there, but then AC/DC would turn up every so often in the playlist, and I'd be like, yeah, that's why they are the biggest fucking band in the world, or one of, is because they are so good. Because you listen to them and you listen to all these other bands, and you just go, yeah, they're amazing. They are just up there, above anything else. Like they're in the top 5, man, of greatest bands, rock bands of all time.
And like you said, the albums can sort of blur into each other, but it's not a slight on them. It's almost like, it's like they're not even trying sometimes. They've just got their formula and they've stuck to it for 50 years and it fucking works. So why would you change it?
I would be annoyed if they went somewhere else with it.
They released a ballads album or something.
I just would be annoyed. I'd be like, no, I want an album to start off with like, dan, get it.
Yeah.
We were joking yesterday. I was thinking, I don't know how the guys in AC/DC actually, when they prepare for a tour, like Angus or Stevie Young, but previously obviously Malcolm. I don't know how those guys like prepare for a tour, because it's like, you can imagine them talking about the songs from like the last 30 years of songs. It's like, nah, Malks, mate. No. Is it dan it, or is it dan it? Oh no, it's this one. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know
there's
what you mean.
many different ribs.
It's like they
all based around the same chords.
They don't even need to really talk about it, do they? I imagine they just rock up and churn it out. There you go. See you later. But yeah, amazing band. It's funny actually, because on the last episode of the podcast we had on Head, who's the guitarist from Korn, and he's in the band Love and Death that Earache has recently signed, and he told us his biggest inspiration was AC/DC as well. So there's so many. I mean, they must have inspired so many musicians and bands, but it's I just find it amazing that they're still going after all these years. It's incredible. But
he's I mean, as a singer, like I'm 40, and I know as I'm getting older, you got, your voice, you have to do certain things to kind of help you get in the zone. He's like 75 and he still sings like that.
Yeah.
He's like a fucking Olympian, man. Like he's a unique specimen.
Yeah. I wonder what,
to be able to sing like that.
I wonder what happened with his hearing thing as well. I imagine he just eventually went to the doctor. Fuck off, mate. I'm getting back on stage. You can't tell me.
Well, I don't actually think that happened. I think he went through a lot. I think he was working with a specialist for quite a few years, and they started honing in on his issues, because he did a bit of an interview recently about it, and I think he was saying that they've really been working at it so he could go back and do it properly.
Right, yeah, because at one point it was like, that's it, he's done, isn't it? He's over, because if he plays live again, he'll be deaf or something like that. It was sad news. And I wasn't really into the whole Axl joining. I mean, I'm a big fan of Guns N' Roses, but it just felt a bit, I don't know, it felt a bit forced maybe. And
well, I think at the end of the day it was forced, because they had this big tour and they like needed someone to fill in,
Yeah.
I saw the shows though, man, and I tell you what, Axl fucking smashed it.
Yeah, maybe I'd feel differently if I never saw them with Axl live, so I feel loyal to Brian, but
Oh, of course, but you know what? Brian's even pointed out what Axl did. He said, look, it's pretty amazing what Axl did. He stepped in and did these numbers. They're not easy songs to sing.
No. Yeah. I mean,
I actually got in touch with AC/DC's management to try and see if they'd let me have an audition when I found out Brian was gone.
Wow, that would be awesome, wouldn't it?
I literally scoured the internet trying to find their management and sent about 4 or 5 emails to different people saying, hey, I'm in this band in London called the Dust Coda. We had, I don't think we'd even released our first album yet.
Yeah. Did you get a reply?
And I was like, yeah, I'm a singer. This is some of our stuff. We're on like SoundCloud. Here's our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I can do the job.
Any reply? Or?
No
reply.
But then obviously Axel got the gig, and I was like, oh well, lost to Axel.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's not a bad person to lose out to, is it? But I mean, yeah, there's loads of great Australian rock bands, isn't there? I mean, another one of my personal favourites, which, to be honest, like the Dust Coda remind me of them quite a lot. But Wolfmother, I don't know if you're a fan of Wolfmother.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's definite influences in the Dust Coda with Wolfmother's music, you know, in the riffs, and even in your vocals. Sometimes there's you know, a hint of Andrew Stockdale there behind it. It's,
yeah, well, I think he's from a similar part of the world to me, actually.
Yeah,
I think he's from Queensland as well. Yeah, I mean, God, their first record's killer, and then By the Sword, the song he did with Slash.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fucking incredible song, man.
Yeah, no, incredible.
Kudos to him, man. Kudos to him. Like it's incredible. Incredible song.
So, what was it like when you were in the studio recording Mojo Skyline? Because you were working with Clint Murphy as a producer, weren't you?
Man, it was great. Like, so we'd already made one record with him, and so we've got a really good working relationship with Clint. So we just kind of went in, and it was like, it's just like catching up with an old pal, but you've also got to make a record. I find making records pretty stressful because, you know, I have a fair amount more work to do than the rest of the guys. I've got to do vocals, I've got to do backing vocals, I do percussion, I do guitars as well.
And you write all the lyrics, is that right?
Yes. So, you know, it's a bit more stressful for me. The guys obviously have their own stresses because they have to work equally as hard within a shorter space of time. But yeah, I mean, Mojo was, you know, we did it at the same studio that we made the debut record, which is Modern World Studios in Tetbury, which is now gone. It was a pretty intense experience. I was pretty run down by the time we'd finished it. I always get pretty run down. Yeah. Because you're singing so much and you got so much to get through. You know, I think we made that album in like 12 days, maybe.
It's quite a stressful process as well. Like, I can imagine it.
Well,
you want
if I didn't have to,
you? Like, you got to get it done in this time, and time is money.
Yeah. It's stressful for me mostly just because you're singing. Like, if I didn't sing, I wouldn't give a shit. I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I'll just turn up and play guitar, no problem.
Yeah.
But so I don't worry about playing the guitar tracks. That's easy. That's like a holiday for me when I'm making a record. The hard part is the singing, you know, like. And some songs are just easy, but ultimately, you're using your body every day, and you know. Let's face it, when I'm making a record, when I've done a day's work, I kind of like to go to the pub and have a few drinks, you know.
Yeah.
So that was a great thing about making this record in Tetbury was there's lovely country pubs down the road. So, you know, if you're not needed, you nip down for a pint or two and then you come back up and see what's happening. I loved it though, because I really, you know, it was great to feel the vibe when we were capturing some of these ginormous songs, you know, like Rolling, which is my favorite song. Which is my favorite.
I was going to say, yeah, the intro to that is, you know, it makes you sit up and take notice, like listen to the rest of it. Yeah,
it's my favorite song off the album. I just think it's a fucking masterpiece, if I do say so myself.
You're allowed.
I think it's my best vocals ever. You know, doing those vocals was pretty hard. The you know, the chorus bit. I remember, you know, being in the studio and feeling my body just kind of really convulsing almost at points, just taking its toll, doing those vocals. I got really sick after we made that album. Like, when I finished my final bit of tracking, I had to go up to the studio myself, up on my own for a day or two to finish all the vocals and everything. And I remember I had to spend like, you know, literally 8 hours at the microphone at one point, just banging through backing vocals and stuff. And
wow, yeah, that's got to take its toll.
well, I remember getting on the train back to London and I was feeling really quite unwell. And then I ended up going back to my girlfriend's place at the time out in Surrey somewhere, and just crashed out in bed. And I was in bed for 3 days. I couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. I had fevers. I was so sick. My whole body was just fucked, like from just all the adrenaline from the stress of trying to hold it together to get the vocals. Then when it was all over, I just kind of literally collapsed in a heap from exhaustion. But hey, it's worth it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's it. If you're pushing yourself to the limit, I mean, you know, there's no better time to do it when you're recording your album, haven't you? You know, you've got to leave it all on the line. So do you have any sort of pre-gig or you know, singing rituals to help you loosen up? I know a lot of people like to have whiskey and stuff before they go on stage just to smooth things over. Are you the same?
Do you know what, man? It depends. It all depends on the gig, you know, like, I usually have a couple of beers. I might have a couple of beers and a shot.
Yeah.
But mostly it's just about getting into the zone, you know. Like, the problem is I like talking to people, but I have to stay away from people before gigs.
Yeah.
You know, because I need to conserve my voice. So if you're at a festival or something and you're getting inside and you're walking around talking to people, I can't do that. Just because I can't spend an hour or 2 hours just talking to people all the time and then go and doing a show. I have to really isolate myself a little bit.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is I'll probably have a beer or two, maybe a cheeky shot or something. Listen to some rock and roll. I need to listen to rock and roll before I go on stage.
Yeah. Do you have a go-to track that gets you in the zone?
Oh, you know, it's going to sound really obvious, but
Go on.
It's got to be AC/DC or Guns, you know, like
no, there's no shame.
Jailbreak or TNT.
Gets the blood pumping.
Or For Those About to Rock.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah! You know, just like, what? Yeah, because it helps me warm up.
Yeah.
And you just sets the scene.
It's like a message, isn't it? It's like AC/DC slapping you on the back going, go on, son, you know, you're about to rock. We salute you.
Yeah, exactly. Or, I mean, hey, man, like, you know, I love listening to, like, Appetite or like Soundgarden, you know, something from Super Unknown or Audio Slave. Yeah. Show Me How to Live, Audio Slave. You know, Chris Cornell is just, I think is just an astounding artist. And I think about that guy every fucking day, I swear to God. I just think, God.
Yeah, such a shame, isn't it?
What a loss. I mean, hugely influenced me as a singer, but just and a songwriter, but just, it fucking breaks my heart, man, when I just think about the fact that guy is no longer with us, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, we had that. It was last year, wasn't it? But I mean, where there was that year where it seemed like, you know, everyone was just dying, or not everyone, but a lot of these rock and roll icons, you know, every week that went past, it was like another one would be gone. I think just after Chris Cornell, there was Chester Bennington from Linkin Park. They went in the space of like a couple of months. You know, Lemmy died that same year, then David Bowie, you know, I'm sure there's loads that I'm forgetting now that also went. And it's, you know, it's a sad moment when you got these artists that you know, you love dearly, and then you realise that actually I'm never going to see him live now. You know, one for me personally was Keith Flint from The Prodigy. Just because I've seen them so many times, and they're one of those bands that you're pretty sure I'm going to see this band a ton more times in my life, because they're just, you know, they work hard, they're at every festival going, and then he's gone, and it's like, you know, it's quite irreplaceable as well. So,
oh, absolutely. You know, yeah, I actually saw The Prodigy at Ali Pali. Oh, wow. In Alexander Palace in London, not long before he passed, and yeah, one of those things, just like, fuck, what's going on with the world? You know, what's going on? Like, collective conscious depression. I don't know. It's really sad, you know. What was the really? I mean, so I placed like Chester, Chris, Keith, Flint in a different bracket to say Bowie because, you know, he was a lot older.
Yeah, true.
And different circumstances.
Lemmy as well. I think it was a miracle Lemmy lasted as long as he did, to be honest.
Exactly. So there's a different kind of sadness that comes with losing Chris Cornell and Chester and Keith, but which is a far more, for me, a heavier load to take. But what really tripped me out was when Bowie died, one, he released that fucking record, which was like the most fucked up PR campaign in history.
But it was like the most like dignified way out ever, wasn't it? The way he's like, you know, he's planned it. He's even up to his T. He's been creative with his own death, where he soundtracked his own death. It's like,
do you know what I mean?
What a genius.
It fucked with my head.
Yeah.
It was his final performance was his death.
Yeah.
But also, what creeped me out, well, not creeped me out, but freaked me out, was the realization that actually David Bowie was human. Because you'd always had this in the back of my mind. I'd always had this suspension of disbelief that was he really a human? Because he took us to so many different places. He was the Thin White Duke. He was Ziggy Stardust. You know, it took you all these places, and part of my head, I was always like, if one artist is just going to be around us all the time, it would be Bowie. And when he died, I was like, no fucking way.
Yeah. No, he's like
not him.
Some kind of shape-shifting alien from Mars, isn't he? You know, you feel
like
he's immortal.
Exactly.
But I mean, what's your opinion on the whole? You know, in rock and roll, there's a lot of cliches like the rock and roll lifestyle. Like if you take someone like Lemmy as an example, where unashamedly for his whole life he's drinking, he's on drugs, there's women, and that's, you know, and proud. But I feel like nowadays it's kind of, you don't get as much as that. I don't know, you know, you get a lot more musicians and artists who feel like, you know, it's a lot more clean living. You know, I imagine there's a lot of vegans in rock bands out there now, and, you know, people who don't drink. What's your opinion on all that, and which side of the fence do you kind of fall on?
So my opinion is, do what you need to do to make yourself happy and function in the world.
Yeah.
If you want to be a vegan and, you know, restrict yourself from all sorts of foods for whatever reason, then good for you. You know, that's your choice as a human being. Or not drink, or go teetotal, or whatever. You know, fine. That's your life. You know. Me, on the other hand,
yeah, not for you, right?
I unfortunately, I am a bit of a fucking extremist. You know, I go through periods where I stop drinking just because I need a break.
Yeah.
And then I'll go through periods where I drink all the time.
Yeah.
What can I say? I am not. I kind of always felt at home with that whole rock and roll thing, you know, drinking whiskey and making music. And because I've made a lot of great music, drinking whiskey and having a great time, right?
Yeah, well, like you said, it's what works for you. And if, you know, if you can function, and, you know, you've obviously done all right out of it. Like you said, you moved to the UK to start a badass band and get a record deal, and here you are. So if a bit of whiskey along the way helped you do that, then, you know, what?
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, though, man, I've had moments where I've quit drinking, and the clarity I've had from quitting drinking. And when I say quit drinking, I mean I've gone for like 3 to 4 weeks without having a drink.
Yeah.
And I've had some profound moments where I've gone, wow, maybe this is the way.
Yeah.
But then I'm also like, I fucking love drinking whiskey. And I love meeting people, and I love getting out there, and I love playing rock and roll, and I love hitting the road, and I love the feeling of playing a show and then hanging out, talking to fans or whoever, and hanging backstage and having a drink. And yeah, as Michael Caine once said, he said, I never want to be able to say I can never have another drink.
Yeah.
So I always, thankfully, I think I have a somewhat addictive personality.
Yeah.
And I go to extremes. I'm either hard drinking or I'm kind of a bit mellow. But thankfully, I managed to kind of, at the right moment, get a hold on it and go, all right, John, sort yourself out. Which is why I have other vices,
Yeah.
This big boxing bag behind me. I kind of juxtapose my lifestyle of, my love of the grape with my love of the bag.
Well, that's a good way. It's a good way to be, to be able to sort of, like you said, go to the extremes and sort of live your life to the max, but then also put the brakes on when it's getting to a point where, it might be out of control slightly. I don't know. It's the perfect place to be, really, I guess, isn't it? Being able to live your life like that. But yeah, tell us about the boxing then, because I know that's one of your hobbies.
Yeah, I've always kind of done a little bit of it over the years, but when I came out of lockdown last time, I joined a boxing gym, which I'd been eyeing off for years, down the road for me, and I never looked back. I love it. It's for me, it gets out a lot of aggression. I'm have a lot of energy, and it keeps me fit, and the cardio is great because it helps with singing. What I love about boxing is that you're using your feet and your hands and all your body, and you're moving around and you have a target. Now, it's actually very similar to being on stage if you're a singer.
Right. Yeah.
And playing guitar. Because you're using your feet to do your foot switches, using your hands to play the guitar, and using your voice to sing to the audience, and you've got to focus on the audience. So for me, it's like training for performing in a different way, and I love it. I really love it. It's like, for me, it's like aggressive mindfulness.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I guess it, like you say, it concentrates the mind, and just like being on stage, that's your release. Punching the shit out of a boxing bag is another form of release, and getting all that, whatever you need to get out of you comes out when you do that. So I can understand that. I guess it's a good hobby to do. I've never done it myself, but I can imagine, on those days where you're feeling wound up and pissed off, punching the shit out of something would probably feel quite good. Well,
the thing is, it's a real craft, though. It's not just random.
Yeah.
Aggressiveness. It's a real craft, and I'm a fucking amateur's amateur at boxing. I do it purely because I love it and fitness, but it's a real craft, though, learning all the way things fit and how the body moves, and it's a never-ending craft, which I find fascinating, which I'm really enjoying, because I've always needed something to take me away from music, to give me a break, and I think I found it. I think boxing might be it.
Yeah, well, it's a good way to. Have you ever had any fights? Or just training? Yeah.
You mean actual in the ring fights?
Yeah, I guess so. Like down the gym or.
No. I'm very much new to it. At my boxing gym, you can have the opportunity to train up for a fight. I might do it, just as an accomplishment thing. Yeah. Just to kind of. Just build up to something, train for something.
Yeah, something to aim at.
But it's early days, man, especially lockdown, and you start, then you stop, you start, you stop,
Yeah, of course, because I guess the gyms they're all closed at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I've got this bad boy behind me.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, yeah, it sounds like a good hobby to get into, and like you said, it can focus the mind and be a release. But one thing I wanted to ask you is, how did you get together with the rest of the guys in Coda? Because obviously you moved to the UK with the purpose of starting the band, but you say earlier that Adam was the guy who brought it all together. Is that right?
So I first met Adam, and he may tell this story differently, but I was working with an Australian recording artist who now lives in New York. His name's Eden James, and I've made several records with him and still write with him. And I've co-written a lot of songs on his albums and done guitar. session guitar for a lot of his albums. But I think there was an audition or some sort of thing to get auditioning guitar players for his band, Eden James's band at the time. I think Adam turned up to an audition, but it didn't really work. Yeah. The two, it wasn't really a fit. But we got to know each other, I think, through that. And then I was doing I was doing solo gigs in London, and he came and did a couple of solo gigs with me. And we didn't really think much of it, but he then got in touch with me one day and said, look, I want to start a rock and roll project. Do you want to, maybe write some songs or something? And I thought, fuck it, why not? And, I wasn't really thinking about it that much. And then we kind of got together. We used to get together once a week. He had a flat in Brixton. We used to live in a share house with his mates, and I'd cruise over to his place and have a few red stripes and smoke a joint, and we just started writing songs together. And and then one night he played this riff and this piece of music, and that was the music for a song called Sweet Love Is Gone.
Okay.
Which is off our first record. I don't know if you've heard it, but and I kind of was like, oh fuck, this is interesting, and I started singing immediately. Sun is shining, leaves are brown, and suddenly something clicked, and we're just like, whoa, this is fucking unique. This is unique. And then we just were like, fuck, man, we're writing real rock and roll songs. We're writing real rock and roll songs, not like, let's get together and write some rock, man. It was like, the songs we were writing felt like the songs I grew up listening to, and it felt like the band I wanted to be in.
Yeah, the chemistry was there, right?
Yeah, and we just kept on doing it, and we just started really simply. I'd come over his place once a week, we'd drink some beer, and we'd record some demos on GarageBand. And then we went away to someplace just outside of Scotland, I think, Newton. I think he's got some family up there, near Newcastle, I think.
Yeah.
Just on the Scottish border, I think. And we ended up writing the best part of our debut album in like a couple of days in the freezing cold in this freezing house. And we kind of came back from that, was like, fuck. We wrote Down in the Valley. We wrote Sweet Love Is Gone. We wrote Will I Ever See You Again? All these tracks from our debut album. I was like, shit, we need to do this.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, we didn't have a label. We didn't have any money. We weren't like, it took a long time to put it together. And we were forking out for it the whole time, jobs and stuff. And it took us a long time to get the lineup for the Dust Coda. We went through other musicians. God, we had loads of people play with us. And
that's right. You've had a few lineup changes down the years. That's right, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then obviously we did the lineup that we had for the first album, which was with Scott, Adam, myself, and a good friend of mine, Ollie Keeler, who made the first album with us.
Yeah.
And then Ollie left, and then we got Tony in. But it must have been a couple of years between me and Adam like meeting and writing these songs and making the first record. Like we really honed it. We kept writing and writing. We're all about making sure the material was just like absolutely pucker, and just you couldn't argue with it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes our records great, is that we just refuse to let anything get across the line, anything get into the studio unless it's top notch.
Yeah, you have a high quality filter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess everything has sort of been building up to this point, right? Now where you've just announced this new album, Mojo Skyline, available to pre-order coming out March. It's been a long, winding road to get to this point. You've collected some celebrity fans along the way, haven't you? With the likes of Elton John, stuff like that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, man.
How did that one happen then? Did that just come out of the blue one day, or?
Yeah, I actually don't know how it happened. I think somehow Demon got one of the tracks off Mojo got passed on to one of his producers, and yeah, he played it on the Rocket Hour, and you know, it was fucking cool, man. Like Elton John he's Elton John,
Yeah.
you know,
Sir Elton John.
and yeah, Sir Elton John, right? And it was so surreal, man, just hearing him being like, up next, the Dust Coda, you know, and you're just like, oh, wow. And then he starts talking about the band, then he talks about me, you know, John Drake from Brisbane, Australia. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Well, that's even cooler
Like,
that you don't quite know how it happened. It's like he sort of stumbled across it himself and gone out of his way to put it out.
I don't think it was that random. I think there's some connection to the band that I'm not entirely sure of how it worked, but you know, our song got pushed into a pile of songs, and then Elton gets to choose a few songs, something like that.
But still, pretty good seal of your approval, isn't it?
At the end of the day, he chooses the songs.
Yeah.
I think we maybe got a bit lucky that we got pushed to a pile of songs that he might get to choose. But he heard the song and chose it, and I was just like, fuck. And, you know, it was great for me, man. It's, you know, it's talking to my parents on the phone and my siblings, and they're like, the best part, dude, was when that show was airing, Elton John was in my hometown playing.
Wow.
That week.
In Brisbane?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's a weird little coincidence.
It was fucking weird. And I was like, damn right. You know, it was a big thing for me to talk to my old man and say, like, you know, I left London a long time ago to form a rock and roll band, and this shit now fucking Elton John's talking about.
Yeah, well, it's what's the word? It's validation, isn't it? It starts getting, you know, it's real when, you know, people like that are setting up and taking notice. It's you know, it's a big deal. So do you know if he's heard this new record yet, or we'll have to get it to him somehow?
I don't think he would have heard it. I mean, God, the great man must have 20 records put on his desk every week, you know.
But we'll have to get it to him somehow. I'm sure it'll be
somehow, yeah.
But yeah, I'll let you go in a minute, John. But before we go, just tell everyone what they can expect from this new album.
I think what you can expect from Mojo Skylon is a record that puts you in the eye of a hurricane, and it gets you through the long, dark nights of the soul. It's got some mournful moments of beauty, and it's got some absolute banging rock and roll numbers. It's got some celebratory, just fucking fist-pumping shit.
Yeah.
It's got some killer classic riffs, and it's got some great melodies, and it's look, I'm going to say it's a modern classic rock and roll record.
Yeah, nice. Well, I think that feels like a good place to end it. But nice one. Thanks for coming on the Earache podcast. And
my pleasure, mate. It's great to talk to you.